All right, what is going on, folks? It is the boys here from across the plane, and we are here to give you our Week 10 fantasy football rankings. My name is Will. You can find me on Instagram at mpls_outdoors. We are a part of Across the Plane, a full coverage sports network where we have a full length podcast on Spotify. So check that out. Link is in the description below. And as always, subscribe to us on YouTube, hit the bell. We'll be going live once or twice a week.
And I'm Jake the Rookie, and that's THA, like across the plane. And you can find us on Twitter. And yeah, this is our fantasy football show. First time joining, welcome, and welcome back for tuning in again.
Yep.
Thanks to our subscribers.
Absolutely. We appreciate every single one of you. Take a moment to stop in. And as always, make sure if you have any questions about trades, your lineup, you can comment. You can hit us up on Twitter and any of that. So kicking off week 10, we've got some buys: Chiefs, Cowboys, Falcons, and Jets. Plenty of fantasy relevant players to go around on those offenses. So another tough bye week. And then tough week for injuries. Christian McCaffrey, obviously out with the shoulder injury. That's tough to see after he came back and had a big game. Ben Roethlisberger got put on the COVID reserve list. We'll see how that has to impact the game against Cincinnati. Let's see. We got David Johnson and David Montgomery dealing with concussions. Neither of them has practiced so far. Keep an eye on the Friday practice reports. Kenyon Drake, Joe Mixon, Darrell Henderson, Devonta Freeman, all questionable. I think Kenyon Drake and Devonta Freeman are trending downwards, while Henderson and Mixon are trending up. And then Sony Michel and Nick Chubb activated off IR. Looks like they both might get a chance to suit up and play. And then Damian Harris is questionable, but did practice on Thursday. So.
Yeah, and with the injuries, I think Friday practice is always the big one to look at. So always keep monitoring your players.
Yeah, absolutely. And take note, this video will be uploaded on Friday. We apologize, we're a little late on that. This is pre-Thursday night football. We will be going live on Sunday with updated rankings. I would say it is tough to do these rankings with so many injuries, so we get a lot more clarity updating those rankings Sunday morning when we have an idea of some of these players, whether or not they're going to play. Joe Mixon, David Montgomery, and David Johnson are all really big question marks right now. And I forgot to Chris Carson should be on that list. He's questionable, but he is also trending upwards towards playing. But yeah, David Johnson, David Montgomery, big ones to keep an eye on.
Absolutely, and as well as Joe Mixon, but I think that's going to be playing.
Yeah,
looks like.
Absolutely. I think I agree with you, but again, Friday practice reports and obviously seeing if the player actually traveled with the team if they're playing on a road game. So let's kick off the rankings here. We'll get into the quarterback rankings. And number one, we got Kyler Murray there versus Buffalo. What can we say about him? Just incredible rushing upside, touchdown upside. They're using him very creatively. And Russell Wilson's been dealing with a couple of turnovers, and Patrick Mahomes is on a bye. So Kyler Murray, number one this week for me.
Yeah, I can't argue. I don't think I had. I think I had Russ number one, but I think I had Kyler two. So he's had a great season so far.
Yeah, and I think that could be a matchup that we could expect to see some points. People have been scoring on Buffalo, and as well as Arizona. So I think that's a high scoring game, and obviously we have both those quarterbacks ranked pretty high. Next up, Russell Wilson at the Rams. I think he kind of gets back on track. He's been having some turnover issues the last two games, but I think he cuts down on those and can see a big week out of his receivers.
Yeah, I agree. Rams coming off a bye, so they might be fresher than Seattle, and I think this is going to be a pretty high scoring game, though.
Yeah, I mean, Seattle's defense is just terrible. If they win, they're going to have to score points to do it.
And we got Aaron Rodgers next versus Jacksonville at Lambeau. Don't know what the weather's going to be like. Is there snow in Green Bay, do you know?
I'll check up on that right now. But I don't know.
But
Aaron Rodgers
it's
versus
Aaron
Jacksonville.
Rodgers. Yeah, he's all three of these guys are putting their name in for MVP right now.
So
And
actually,
they're a must start every week.
yeah. I will say, I think I'm still gonna have Aaron Rodgers ranked pretty high. It does look like we may have some weather. It looks like some rain in the morning, which probably will. It looks like it will stop by kickoff, but it looks like it is going to be windy. Gusts up to 35 miles per hour. But I do still think. I mean, the Packers, they get a lot of passing touchdowns in short yardage situations. Like they get a lot of passing touchdowns like on the 1 yard line and 2-3 yard line. They're really short. So I still am confident that Aaron Rodgers can have 3 or more touchdowns this week.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is just he's gonna be big almost every week, guaranteed top 10 play. So I like him this week.
Yeah.
And then next we got Josh Allen at Arizona.
Yeah, we had the return of Josh Allen last week.
Yeah, bounced back, got the lead early and held on to it.
Yeah, Russell Wilson came back fighting, but huge week for Josh Allen. Ended up with 36 and a half fantasy points. So absolute monster week. And I think it's going to be another big week for him. It's at Arizona.
I don't think as big of a week. I think Seattle was a very favorable matchup, and
Or Arizona.
Hopefully last week.
Oh, last week, yeah.
The big week, 36. Yep. So I don't think he has 36, but I think at Arizona you can probably see 20 to 25 points from Josh Allen.
Yeah, and I think, and again, Josh Allen
with upside going higher.
Yeah,
because he gets in the end zone.
They run they run a lot of design plays for him in the red zone.
Exactly. Yeah, I think they like him just as much as any of their running backs.
Yeah.
Within 5 yards, 10 yards.
Yeah, they really like to roll him out and give him that option to run in there. So next up, Deshaun Watson at Cleveland. Deshaun Watson, he's got his receivers healthy. He's gotten back on track from a little bit of a slow start to the season, and he's just been on fire lately. So Deshaun Watson, number 5.
Yep, absolutely. Hopefully, again, Cleveland, so the weather might be a thing, but Deshaun Watson's going to be slinging that ball.
Yeah, 50 degrees and sunny in Cleveland, winds 10 to 20 miles per hour.
Oh, that's a good day.
So not terrible, by any means. Justin Herbert, number 6 at Miami. He's just been on fire lately. He's been a great pickup if you were one of the players to pick him up off waivers. A little bit of a tougher matchup at Miami, but again, the way they use him and I mean that's really what it is. The way they use him and the game script always favors Justin Herbert for a good fantasy game.
Yeah, that offense gets the ball to their playmakers. I'm worried about the offensive line with this pass rush, but we'll see how he does. He's good. I think he's solid. He hasn't scored less than 20 points since for the last 4 weeks, so that's why we got him there at 6.
Yep, Lamar Jackson at New England coming in at number 7, been disappointing. I mean honestly, if he doesn't have a good week this week, I'm gonna have to start ranking him lower. It's gonna be tough to rank him lower. I mean, it's pretty much just based on what we've seen last year, and name value and talent is why he's up this high for me. But it's gonna be it's Lamar Jackson. The talent's there, but the production has not been there lately. So.
Yeah, for fantasy, not been there. He's getting the W's, so
exactly.
That's good for football, but not for fantasy football. So I've benched him for Justin Herbert at this point, and even traded Lamar Jackson away. So
I definitely agree with that. So we'll see. It's going to be looks like not a whole lot of wind, but it looks like it is going to be raining there in Foxborough on Sunday.
Yeah, I don't think that matters too much. I think that might actually help Lamar Jackson because maybe they let him run a little bit more. But if we're not seeing the 100-yard rushing games that we saw last year,
Yeah, I
so
agree with you.
we were really high on him because of that preseason, and so is everyone else. But so far, I think he's just like mid-tier. He's a start for sure because of that, but it's just like I'm not putting him in my top 3 anymore.
Yeah, oh no, not at all. And again, if he doesn't perform this week, I think he's going to continue to slip a little bit. Next up, we got Tom Brady at number 8. I think he's going to have a bounce back game. I mean, seriously, you look at Tom Brady's career, that was one of Tom Brady's, if not Tom Brady's worst game as a starter he's ever had.
It looked really
57%
bad.
completion percentage, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 40 QB rating of 40. Just absolutely terrible. And I expect better things from Tom Brady. Carolina's still got a good defense, but again, I can't imagine Tom Brady's. I mean, yeah, I don't see it again. I don't see 0 touchdowns with 3 interceptions.
I think a lot of that game, and it just went wrong from the beginning, and it started with the Buccaneers defense giving up points and then turnover, giving up points. And when you abandon the run with Tom Brady, that's when he starts to not do so good for fantasy. For fantasy football, you want Tom Brady's running backs to be in the game.
Yeah, and this Carolina defense is much stronger in their secondary than they have been. Like passing defense, they've been much better than they have been against running backs. So I do think they run the ball a little bit more.
He has so many weapons though, and then it's just I think they might get it together, and
Yeah,
I think Tampa Bay pulls out the win this week.
yeah, I
And
agree with you.
Tom Brady will have decent fantasy production.
Yeah, next up we got Jared.
Nothing like last.
Yeah, next up we got Jared Goff at number 9, and this is all about matchup. I think Jared Goff um, could potentially have a huge game versus Seattle. Seattle's the absolute worst defense against the fantasy quarterbacks, and I mean, what can you say? You're almost guaranteed to throw for 3 touchdowns against Seattle.
Yeah, it does seem to. That's the trend right now, and Jared Goff is only owned in rostered in 59% of leagues. So if he's out there on the waiver wire, he would be our stream of the week. It's a little high for streaming, but he's probably owned on someone's bench or something. But I think if he's on that waiver wire and you got Mahomes on the bye this week or Matt Ryan on the bye this week, it's perfect plug and play.
Yeah, I think if he's out there, go and get him. I mean, I think like I'm just keep continuing to think about the rankings. I think he might like I wouldn't be it wouldn't be crazy for someone to say I have Jared Goff ranked higher than Lamar Jackson this week.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. It's just matchup. Like I know Jared Goff is not. He's averaging around the same points. Put it that way.
Yeah, and it's just all matchup for me. Looks so.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Jared Goff's
I have him probably right next to
17.5 points. So, and I think he goes over that this week. Lamar Jackson is averaging 19 or around 20 points. So I think Lamar Jackson has a better chance of going under, and Jared Goff has a higher chance of going over.
Yeah. I mean, Seattle's been giving up just over 30 points per game. I mean, it's bad over there in Seattle.
Yep. And then next up, we got Carson Wentz.
Yeah. Also, sorry, Seattle's giving up 362 yards passing per game, which is 50 more than the next worst team, the Falcons. So, and they're giving up 455 yards on total offense per game. So I expect, I expect big things, Jared Goff. Next up, Carson Wentz at the Giants. Coming off a bye there, Looks like it looks like the Eagles are finally starting to be somewhat healthy. Still no Zach Ertz, but it looks like we'll have Goddard back. Looks like we'll have Miles Sanders back. Looks like obviously Jalen Rager took the field for the first time in a couple weeks before the bye. He's going to be on the field, and it looks like we also may see Alshon Jeffries. So, still no Deshaun Jackson or Zach Ertz, but the offense is getting a lot healthier.
Yeah, he people expected him to put up against Dallas, which he did not. But last time he played the Giants, he put up 27 points. So hopefully you can wishfully hope he does that. But Carson Wentz has turnover problems, evidence. Averages 2 turnovers a game, so just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and again, you're hoping for he has high upside at the quarterback position for rushing touchdowns, and that's what you're really hoping for. But I do think he could put together a nice week against the Giants. Next up, Joe Burrow at Pittsburgh. A little bit of not a little bit. It's a tough matchup. But I do think that you can throw on this Pittsburgh defense.
I think you can too, and I think he's going to because they're going to be down. But Ben Roethlisberger being out, maybe it'll be a closer game than people expect.
Yeah.
I think the Cincinnati team might be able to go in there and pull out a W.
Yeah, obviously every week is different. You can say they're playing down to their opponent, but Dallas Dallas they kept it a close game, and no one had them even close to beating the Steelers.
Steelers are a much better home team. I'll give them that, but I think Joe Burrow could go in there and I don't think the Steelers team goes undefeated. I don't know how many games they lose, but this might be it.
Yeah,
I could see. I would maybe make that bet in Vegas, especially with the odds. I don't know what the odds are, but I don't think they're good. Maybe they went down with Rudolph.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. But I agree with you. I think Pittsburgh could potentially see their first loss of the season. Next up, Drew Brees versus San Francisco. He's kind of getting his weapons back. He's been playing decent. Hasn't had the crazy high upside that we're even hoping for, but I feel good about him at number 12 this week. This is actually the highest I've had him ranked in a long time. But we got some good quarterbacks on buys, and he's got his weapons back now. Michael Thomas is a big piece for him, and I expect to see more touchdowns and better production from him in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I'm reading something about a shoulder. Maybe that limits him. We'll see. I think if he gets the lead, I'm looking for a big Alvin Kamara game. Hopefully, they won't have to throw the ball that much. And even when he does throw, he doesn't throw it that far. So, for the most part, I think Drew Brees with Michael Thomas back, you can expect a little more production because slant routes, easy money.
Yeah, and I think it's a pretty safe bet for a multi-touchdown game out of Drew Brees.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Next up, Derek Carr versus Denver. Been kind of up or down, but it's a favorable matchup against Denver at home.
It is, and we've told you to do Derek Carr for 2 weeks now, and hasn't worked out very great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this week I like the matchup a lot better.
Yeah, at home versus Denver, great matchup.
He's been good at home.
Yeah, and still been limiting the turnovers this year, so I think he could be a good streamer play. And another good streamer play looks to be Baker Mayfield. I think could have a good game versus Houston.
Yeah, he definitely could. It's been hit or miss with Baker Mayfield, and it's a very favorable matchup against Houston.
Yeah, and again, I expect Houston to be able to put up some points, and so they're going to need to be throwing to keep up.
Yeah, hopefully that. Browns need to win to stay in playoff contention.
Yeah.
So hopefully they do that.
Yep. We got Tua at number 15. He looked really good last week.
He did. Got the win against Arizona and didn't turn the ball over. I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't remember one.
And he just looked really good. Had some nice passing plays there. He looked really good running the football really fast, and we were starting to see that same player that we saw at Alabama pre-injury.
Yeah, he's very crafty on his feet.
Yeah, it was fun watching him and Kyler Murray play last week.
And yeah, left-handed quarterbacks are just so fun to watch for me.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And next we got Teddy Bridgewater versus Tampa Bay, and I think Teddy's taking the reins, and I think Carolina could surprise some people and win some games in the next 8. But I don't know if this is going to be one of them.
Yeah, I think it's a tough
It's gonna be a
matchup.
close game though.
Yeah, I think they're going to fight hard. You know, it's a tough matchup. They played well against the Chiefs, but it is a tough matchup. I do think, like we talked about earlier, I do think Tom Brady and the Bucks going in this week with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to try and have a big win and score a lot of points. But I do think Teddy Bridgewater is a pretty safe bet. Again, we're in this point where he's a safe bet, I think, for a multi-touchdown game. And he does have some rushing upside for touchdowns.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, he benefited last week playing the Chiefs because it was just a shootout game, and hopefully this week will be another shootout versus Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Good for fantasy. But last time against Tampa Bay, he definitely had struggles. Week 2 had the two interceptions, and yeah, got sacked 5 times and fumbled the ball. So it was not good. But I think this week, don't start him. I'm not telling you to do that. Go higher on a ranking, but 16 Teddy.
And then next up, we got Drew Lock. He was our number 2 streaming quarterback. And you know what? I hope some of you were able to go out and start Drew Lock. He had a monster week last week, and now this is 3 weeks in a row. He's had 40 or more passing attempts. I think this is another favorable matchup for him. Has some rushing upside. He has 2 touchdowns on the ground in his last 3 weeks. And, you know, if he hasn't really been playing well until the fourth quarter, but again, they're passing the ball, and he has some rushing upside.
Yeah. This is all true. And yeah, last week against Atlanta, it was a good stream, and this week he could outperform his ranking at 17.
Yeah, I agree with you. He has a lot of really good passing weapons. You know, Jerry Jeudy, we saw great games from all their weapons last week. Obviously, Noah Fant went out. Looks like he may be able to suit up again this week. But Noah Fant, great tight end, played well until the injury. KJ Hamler had a big game. Obviously, Jerry Jeudy had his breakout game. And Tim Patrick still put together a nice game. So it was impressive to be able to see 3 players have good 3 receivers have good fantasy games that week.
Yeah, he does have his interception problems, but I think Las Vegas is another favorable matchup, and that's why he's in our top 20.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, Ryan Tannehill, tough matchup versus Indianapolis. Titans offense has kind of stumbled now since they lost Taylor Lewan, and again, we're kind of just hoping that he gets back on track and scores a couple of touchdowns.
Yeah, I think that's turning their season trajectory way down. It's just a crucial player in a crucial position.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yep, I totally agree with you.
And then next we got Jake Luton.
Jake Luton, he looked good last week.
He did.
He had the big touchdown to DJ Chark right away. Had a really impressive touchdown. Had an impressive run there.
And do we know about Jake Luton and Minshew? Is this going to be
Looks like Minshew's still injured, but I think they're still rolling with Luton.
But I'm talking about when Minshew is not injured.
Oh,
Is it going to be
I
a
don't know yet.
competition, you think?
I think Luton might win. I think they're kind of turning away from Minshew. I feel like I think they felt like they've
Seen what he
seen
has.
exactly. They've seen it from him, and they're not confident that he can take it to that next. You know. But yeah, threw for 300 yards.
Yeah, he impressed me. I mean, it was against Houston, very bad defense, but I I didn't know what to expect, and I was happily surprised.
Yeah, and
He's
it's
got a deep ball,
yeah,
good arm strength, uh, pretty accurate. He looked decently confident. That 2 point conversion was crucial last week, and during that one, he kind of choked. But other than that, he played a heck of a game.
yeah, heck of a game. And again, it's another favorable matchup against Green Bay. I mean, their defense you can definitely score points on. Definitely much worse against the run, but James Robinson's a great running back, and I think he'll be able to set up plays on the outside.
And last, we got Daniel Jones. By all means, do not start Daniel Jones, but keep an eye on him.
Didn't turn the ball over last week, which was
Didn't.
important. So if he can limit turnovers and keep throwing touchdowns, maybe he'll creep up to like 18 or 17 or maybe even 16 if he has a favorable matchup.
Yeah, it's still hard. I might even tell you to start somebody else. Like, I don't even know why I got Daniel Jones at 20. I might even say, even not turning the ball over, he does not score fantasy points at at a high rate this year. I don't know what it is, but he hasn't surpassed 2 touchdowns and hasn't surpassed 300 yards at all. So
Yeah. Start everyone above him, over him.
yeah,
Let's get
exactly.
into the running back ranks though. I feel good about these rankings, and again, they will be updated on Sunday.
Yep, we'll be going live Sunday as well.
Yep. So running back ranks here. Number one, Alvin Kamara versus San Francisco. I expect a big game from him this week.
I sure hope so, and I do too.
Yeah, I mean, so we'll get through these top three or four quick. Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry are pretty much locks for the top four, top five. Um, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook are pretty much locks at 1 and 2. It seems like. Um, so obviously, if you have any of these guys, you're starting them. Um, I personally have Aaron Jones number one. I think game script could end up going his way. I think, but again, it's totally interchangeable in my opinion. They're all top legit RB1s.
Yeah, with weather, I especially think Aaron Jones could get a lot of touches. Hopefully, it's not too hard to stay on your feet with the rain and the slipping and all that. But you know what? They got great equipment. But yeah, Aaron Jones is a monster. Top four is locked. And fifth, you want to just move on to five?
Yeah, absolutely. James Robinson versus Houston, favorable matchup, and again, they were using him. They've been using he's the legit 3 down running back, legit RB1 in Jacksonville, and he's now a must start. Honestly, one of the best undrafted free agent running backs we've seen come out. One of the best free agent pickups in fantasy football. Most people got him off waivers. He is now RB4 in half point PPR scoring, and it's a favorable matchup versus Houston. Expect a big game from James Robinson.
I mean, yeah, he's actually playing Green Bay,
Oh yeah,
but yeah, typo on that. But we got
he
James
has passing
Robinson.
upside.
Yeah, he has passing upside, and his volume has increased the last 2 weeks. So keep an eye on that. I think, yeah, against Green Bay, you should think about starting a running back against Green Bay.
Yeah, they've been
Absolutely.
terrible against the run. Next up, a familiar face that we'll see that who is back. Miles Sanders
He's
looks like
been
he's
good
going to
when he's been
return.
playing.
Yeah, and he's been getting the volume.
Yeah. And you know what? Eagles need something, so maybe it's him.
Yeah, and again, with passing weapons returning to the outside, that's only going to help a player like Miles Sanders. Expect him to touch the ball. I mean, I expect him to touch the ball at least 15 times.
Yeah, and he could just be terrific for the rest of the year and be one of those guys who helps you get to the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with you. Next up, James Conner versus Cincinnati had a little bit of a dud game, but the Pittsburgh Steelers kind of had a dud game against the Cowboys last week. James Conner could not get it going, but it's a favorable matchup versus Cincinnati. We're looking for him to get back on track.
Yeah, hopefully he gets more volume, especially with Rudolph, and he's got a good matchup against Cincinnati. I think he's could get good touches and hit the end zone.
Yeah. Next up, another familiar face in the top 10 who's returning finally back off of injury. Hallelujah, I'm a Nick Chubb fantasy football owner, and he is returning this week versus the porous Houston defense, and I expect them to get the ground rolling. We haven't had an update this week on Friday. Uh, we're waiting on the Friday practice reports. Early reports came out Thursday morning that he is practicing without a knee brace for the first time, so expect Nick Chubb, I think, to return to that bell cow. And they're just with that Kevin Stefanski offense, they're just going to be running the ball a whole lot versus Houston. Because, like you said, they need to win this game.
Yeah, and Ian Rappaport says today that Nick Chubb is back on the field. I don't know if that means practice field or he's going to be in, but I expect a good game and in a great matchup for Nick Chubb.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, we got Josh Jacobs, number 9. And he's just been getting volume coming off of a season high 32 carries 2 weeks ago. He only saw, I think, 14 or 15 carries this week, but I do expect him to bump it up a little bit. It's a favorable matchup versus Denver, and Josh Jacobs kind of a lock top 12 running back based on volume and goal line work.
Yeah, and Vegas seems like they want to run the ball at the moment, so Raiders doing a lot of running the ball, and Josh Jacobs getting a lot of work, and Denver is a decent matchup for him.
Yeah, absolutely. We Josh Jacobs owner, we're a little bummed to see Devontae Booker get a touchdown, but it happens. That's fantasy football. Josh Jacobs still ended up scoring a touchdown as well. Next up, Kareem Hunt versus Houston, and with the return of Nick Chubb, honestly, his points per game with Nick Chubb were higher than without. And while we are higher on Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt I think is still a lock top 10 play.
Yeah, it's a super safe play. I don't think you're gonna be upset playing him, and I think you'll. Yeah, he just gets in the end zone, so it's just touchdown upside. It's super good.
They use him in the passing game, and I think he still is a safe bet to see probably 10 to 12 carries.
Yeah, absolutely. They split it almost down the middle.
Next up, looks like we'll have Chris Carson also returning, and if he's playing, it looks like he's trending towards playing. He has super high touchdown upside. So Chris Carson there, number 11 at the Rams.
Yeah, and when he's on the field, he's pretty good. So you got him. I know you're anxious to get him back in your lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, Mike Davis versus Tampa Bay. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey's out. It's a tough matchup versus Tampa Bay. They've been one of the stoutest defenses against the run. When Christian McCaffrey first went out in the first 3 weeks of Mike Davis, we saw him having huge involvement in the passing game. So We're really looking for Mike Davis to keep that up, like you saw the first couple weeks when he was the starter. But he's a safe bet for high volume this week.
Yep, absolutely. I got nothing else to say. It's just volume. He's in there because Christian McCaffrey is out. So I think he's low tier RB1 when Christian McCaffrey's out.
Yeah, I agree with you. Next up, Antonio Gibson found his way into the end zone last week. That is now 2 weeks in a row. He had 20 carries the week before, week 7 against Dallas, and then week 9, his next game. He only had 6 carries. He did get the touchdown, which kind of saved his day. 3 catches for 35 yards. But it's really, it's tough to figure out what's going on in this Washington backfield. But for now, it does look like they are both good plays.
Yeah, and it's just the best matchup for a fantasy running back so far has been against the Detroit Lions. So very safe play.
Yeah, I agree with you. We got him up at 13. Next up, Chase Edmonds versus Buffalo. We were super high on him last week. He got the volume, did not find his way into the end zone last week. Not sure if Kenyon Drake is going to play yet. He's obviously dealing with that small ankle tear. But even if Kenyon Drake sees the field, I think it's in a limited fashion, and I'm still high on Chase Edmonds, even if Kenyon Drake is on the field. He got 25. I know he got 25 carries last week. Only saw 3 receptions, but I wouldn't be surprised if that number upticks a little bit. And again, if he can, 25 carries last week.
Yeah, that's more carries than he's ever gotten. It's kind of on the low side for receptions. He's been sort of their receiving back with Kenyon Drake in, so he's still. I think he could have a big game versus Buffalo. It just depends on game script and how it goes.
Yeah, I agree with you. But yeah, I think he's a lock for some high volume work. Next up, still not 100% if he's going to play. We got Joe Mixon at Pittsburgh. I know Joe Mixon fantasy owners are eagerly awaiting the return of him, and it is a tough matchup, even if he does play at Pittsburgh. But it's Joe Mixon, and he's getting the volume, and it's hard to sit a guy like Joe Mixon if he's suiting up. So Joe Mixon comes in at number 15.
Yeah, it's pretty safe play when he plays. Very tough matchup. Coming off the injury, might see some Gio Bernard, so keep him in mind.
Yeah. So Joe Mixon was listed on the injury. We had a little injury point at the beginning of the show, and yeah, it honestly he hasn't practiced all week. We're gonna wait and see if he practices on Friday. If he does not practice on Friday, we know with running backs those foot injuries can just be nagging. Very high chance of re-injury. So maybe they're being cautious. Maybe yeah, he very well could end up missing time, and I would be confident in a player like Gio Bernard swapping him out at number 15. I'd put him right where Joe Mixon is if Joe Mixon is declared out.
All right. And then next we got Leonard Fournette at Carolina, and he's taking over as the number 1 back, I think.
Yeah, has a much safer floor. Obviously, game script was not favoring the running backs. I mean, they barely got any carries. He only got 1 carry last week, but that is coming off the backs of 2 games where he's had double-digit carries, and now that is at least 6 targets 3 weeks in a row. So his fantasy football day was, I'm not going to say saved, but it was salvaged with 6 catches and 40 yards, and that's going to keep him more relevant than Ronald Jones.
Agreed, but it is a good matchup at Carolina.
Yeah, I expect more carries out of the running backs again. They got down so fast, so early that they had to totally abandon the run in the first quarter.
Then next we got B. Johnson at Cleveland.
You see what we did there?
And it's either David or Duke, and I think whoever it is going to be right there.
Yeah, Duke played a
We
great
got
game
David
last week.
Johnson. Yeah, he did. And that's not really happened so far this year. So if you ended up playing Duke Johnson,
Okay, actually,
looks like he's trending on being the back.
it
David Johnson getting the concussion.
so actually Thursday, as of Thursday afternoon, he did not practicing on Thursday, and is actually now expected to miss. Expecting to miss Sunday's game. So I think that's going to be Duke Johnson there at Cleveland, but I still feel really good. Look for the revenge game of Duke Johnson at Cleveland. But
Yeah.
Duke Johnson played a great game last week with the volume.
Yeah. So yeah, we got Duke Johnson at 17.
Yeah, he had 16 carries, got a touchdown, had 4 catches last week. So going to be involved in the passing game and going to be a safe bet for high volume there.
Next up, we got DeAndre Swift, and we're hoping that we have a little clarity.
He got 13 carries last week, had 5 targets, which was nice. Been getting decent involved in the passing game. It's a tough matchup versus Washington, but again, if he's a very talented player, if he continues to touch the ball just double digits, at least 10 times, he's going to stay very fantasy relevant.
Yes, and they do like him in the red zone, so that's an upside.
Yeah, totally.
And then next up, Darrell Henderson.
Limited practice on Thursday, but that's now back-to-back practices that he's been limited, so we do expect him to play. Not totally sure how much the injury is going to affect him, but I do expect him to get a decent amount of volume against a favorable Seattle matchup.
Yeah, I think he'll be a safe start.
Yep. Next up, we got David Montgomery versus Minnesota. Again, and this is tough because he plays Monday night, and we're still not sure if he's going to play. It's a favorable matchup versus Minnesota. Definitely a team you can run on, but it's tough with those Monday games.
It's really tough, and I don't know who I would even suggest for a backup plan. Like, I don't know if I would even want to plug in whoever they got. Didn't they just sign somebody?
Lamar Miller, I believe.
Lamar Miller.
He was on the practice squad, I believe. So it looks like it'd be Ryan Nall and Lamar Miller. I'm honestly, with the not practicing on Thursday, we'll wait and see what happens on Friday. If he does not practice on Friday, I am looking for other options.
Yeah, keep posted with the Sunday show, and we can tell you more about what to do.
Yeah. Next up, Melvin Gordon at Las Vegas. It's this running back situation is tough to figure out. Melvin Gordon hasn't been great since Philip Lindsay returned, but I do expect a better game from Melvin Gordon against a favorable Las Vegas defense.
Should be better. It's tough to sit him. It's Melvin Gordon. You know what he's capable of, and that is getting in the end zone. So, yeah, I think it's a safe start. But he's been trending down. Just say that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. J.D. McKissic coming in at number 22, and this is again reminding in half-point PPR format. Last week had 14 targets, 9 catches. It looks obviously Kyle Allen went down with the injury. Alex Smith, they're now rolling with Alex Smith at quarterback, and he loves checking it down to his running backs. He loves it, and I think J.D. McKissic is just a huge beneficiary of that.
Yeah, he's been the pass catching back for the most part, and he's got the Detroit is the worst against fantasy running backs. We've seen what Dalvin Cook did, and we saw what. Yeah, they've just got put up on. So J.D. McKissic is a safe play this week.
Yeah, next up, coming in at 23, we got Jerick McKinnon. And they backed off of JaMychal Hasty last week. I wouldn't be surprised if they go back to JaMychal Hasty a little bit more, but still, Jerick McKinnon seen 4 targets back-to-back games, had 12 carries last week, and now has a touchdown also in back-to-back games, has 5 on the season. So
Yeah, it's New Orleans has been tough against the run. It's mainly because they just get ahead and teams abandon the run.
yeah,
But yeah, Jerick McKinnon, I don't really like this situation right now. I want Mostert back. I'm feeling more confident about Mostert.
yeah, and again, we're getting to that point of now where pretty much all of these guys are going to be involved in some kind of committee backfield at that point of the rankings now. So next up, we got Ronald Jones at Carolina, and again, 24 could end up finishing higher than Leonard Fournette, but right now, we're going with Leonard Fournette with that safe passing floor. Don't really know what to expect. Ronald Jones, I still could be a decent flex play though.
Yeah, favorable matchup. Agree, and I think he's a safe flex play. He's got upside.
Next up, Philip Lindsay at Las Vegas. Another totally split committee backfield. Philip Lindsay is definitely the more talented running back, but they just seem like they want to give the ball more to Melvin Gordon. So, not really sure what to expect, but again, it's a favorable matchup at Las Vegas. Philip Lindsay has big play potential.
Yep, he's definitely very very fun to watch for me. And I think if you're hurting that running back, you saw all the injuries there, he might be the guy you're rolling with this week.
Yeah, I think he actually has some high upside at Las Vegas.
He's a big play running back. He's really exciting to watch.
Yeah, it's just unfortunately he does not get the volume warranted for his talent. Next up, we'll go Jonathan Taylor, 26. Honestly, he's going to keep on slipping if he keeps on getting out touched. It's 2 weeks in a row heading into Thursday night's game where he's been out touched in the backfield by Jordan Wilkins. It looks like this is a straight up committee backfield between Wilkins, Nyheim Hines, and Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I have Jonathan Taylor. Wilkins and Himes are on the waiver wires in our league, and I'm at the point where I don't know which one to have.
It looks like they favor a different one every week. I will say, Nyheim
Hines has the passing upside.
Yeah, and Philly Rivers does like his checkdowns to running backs. Hines is the kind of the quick,
they have
shifty
screens to him too a lot.
Yeah. So
they line him up out wide like a receiver. Or in the slot. So I like that. So I think I might. I don't know if I can switch him out. But I think Taylor might. I'm still holding on for the Jonathan Taylor game. I hope it happens this week so I can get some trade value for him. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get hopefully more clarity on that backfield situation. But honestly, I think it's just a straight up committee backfield, and every week it might be a different running back that gets favored a little more.
Yep.
All right, next up, Zach Moss at Arizona has now scored 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. Only had 9 carries, but they were throwing the ball a lot. And I think he has decent touchdown upside, and that's why he falls at 27.
Agreed.
And yeah, he did have 2 catches for 30 yards, which was nice. Gave you an extra 4 points and half-point PPR. So look to get some decent. I mean, not a small amount of involvement in the passing game to boost his floor up a little bit, and turning out to be a decent play with some high touchdown upside going forward.
Yeah, him and Singletary have been pretty much the same, and I think Zach Moss has higher touchdown upside.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Next, we got Kalen Ballage, who stepped in for the injured Justin Jackson.
Yeah, man, that was tough last week.
Yeah,
Justin
that was a
Jackson was
tough one.
started in many, many leagues and got you 0 points. And I was one of those players. It was tough. It's really tough. But
Yeah,
Kalen Balaj stepped in, had, kind of did what we expected Justin Jackson to do. Had, 2 catches, 15 yards, 15 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown. So,
yeah, and think he's. I think they like him. I think they're gonna go back to him, and I think Justin Jackson might sit out again.
yeah, he's questionable heading into the week. We'll see. It's really tough to tell because again, we're in that part of the rankings where everyone's involved in a committee backfield, and it honestly can switch week to week for any of these guys.
Yeah, we're at the point where you're starting these guys, and it's an emergency.
Yeah, next up, Matt Breida versus Chargers. Uh, I'm not too high on him, but if he's healthy, I think he has some passing upside and might see. It looks like Jordan Howard still is going to be a goal line back, but I think Matt Breida would see the ball a little bit more, and I think he can be a decent option out of the backfield for Tua.
Yeah. Well, I think he. I wouldn't want to play him, and I see that he's questionable still, but I. It's a good matchup against the Chargers.
Yeah, I agree. So now 30 through 40. I don't really need to touch on any of the guys too closely. Is I guess out of these guys to outperform, I think J.K. Dobbins could have a decent game. Wayne Gallman with Devonta Freeman trending towards out, has been a nice plug and play player with touchdown upside, and I think we see that again.
Yeah, I agree.
Uh, and
I like I like Jamal Williams this week.
I also like Jamal Williams. I think outperform that ranking at 38. Um, we'll see how much involvement he gets, but they do like to use two running backs, and Jamal Williams is definitely a threat out of the backfield for passing.
Agreed. And yeah, a favorable matchup.
Yeah, and again, I do think one Gus Edwards or J.K. Dobbins. Gus Edwards, I think, is a safer play. I think J.K. Dobbins has higher upside though, so they're going to be ranked pretty close, and it's J.K. Dobbins has higher upside, so that's why I have him ranked higher.
Yeah. And Ingram still didn't practice, so I don't think he's going to play.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, you want to kick off with the wide receivers?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, and kind of a lock at number one, Devontae Adams.
Yeah, he's when on the field, he has been the guy.
Yeah, Keenan Allen number two uh, at number two at Miami. He's just been a staple of consistency at the wide receiver position. If you drafted him and have hung on to him, his production has been absolutely incredible. So consistent. Justin Herbert's been looking his way. It just seems like every play, and upside is through the roof.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's got 86 targets through 8 games. You can't ask for any.
Yeah,
Anything
it is a
better than
tough
that.
matchup at Miami. Xavier Howard. Xavier Howard was very aggressive on DeAndre Hopkins last week, which we saw. Gave up a lot of penalties, but was still very aggressive. So, but again, Keenan Allen, possession receiver.
That's almost 11 targets.
Yeah, a
He
lock.
averages almost
Yeah,
11 targets
I
a
mean,
game, so that's
okay,
ridiculous.
yeah. Next up, DK Metcalf at the Rams. One of the most, if not the most talented receiver in the game, most physically gifted. Jalen Ramsey only covers one half of the field. They're going to move Lockett and DK and David Moore around. And, I mean, yeah, what more do you want from DK Metcalf? He's always in line for a huge game.
Yeah, he could have a big play guy. He gets touchdowns. Can't ask for more.
Yeah, and honestly, it looks like
And he's got a great quarterback.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, DK Metcalf number three. Next up, DeAndre Hopkins versus Buffalo. Same situation. Great quarterback, great offense. going up against a tough matchup versus Tre'Davious White, but I'm not too worried about that. We've seen him get beat this year, and expect a lot of points out of that game.
I hope he gets more points. He was not targeted in the first half of last week's game, and that I think they need to get him more involved.
Yeah, but again,
I think this is a tougher matchup.
Yeah, watching that game, I will say Xavier Howard gave up a lot of penalties, being super overly aggressive on Hopkins, and on some deep plays where you're looking at like it probably would have gone Hopkins' way if he hadn't gotten,
Oh yeah.
So I do think we see better days for Hopkins, and then Stephon Diggs, hasn't been getting the touchdowns, but has been so consistent with targets and yardage that he's pretty much a lock for a top 8 play every week.
Yeah. I definitely. I think he has maybe let's check. Stephon Diggs is averaging, I think, just around the same as Keenan Allen for targets.
Yeah, he's seeing a whole bunch of targets. He's only had one game where he's had under 8 targets, and that was where he had 6. Saw 12.
91, so he actually leads the league. Or actually, he's played 9 games. So.
Yeah. But second in the league, though, in targets per game, Stephon Diggs. Yeah, 10 targets a game. Has gone over 100 yards 4 times this year. Week before last, he went 92 yards. So, again, we'd like to see more touchdowns. Only had 3 on the year, but the touchdowns will come, and the safe floor is there for Stephon Diggs.
Next up, we got Allen Robinson. He's got a favorable matchup versus Minnesota. And he's just been Mr. Consistent for Chicago.
Yeah, another player with such a safe lock based on targets, seeing close to double-digit targets every single week. A safe lock with a really safe floor. Again, like Diggs, you'd like to see more touchdowns, but again, he's averaging like 8 catches a week, got 3 touchdowns, and he's seeing good yardage totals.
Yeah, he has a Q by his name at the moment. It says knee and limited participant, but I think they're just giving him rest.
Yeah, if he practiced, that's good. Plus, they have the extra day to rest they play on Monday.
Yeah, and he's out there pretty much every play, so.
Yeah, Michael Thomas.
Always nice to see.
Yeah, Michael Thomas coming next, number 7 versus San Francisco. Didn't have a huge game last week, but again, game script was kind of weird last week with that game. And I do think Michael Thomas, we start to see better production. He only had 6 targets for 5 catches, but I definitely think we see that uptick next week.
Yeah, he's got San Francisco, and then he plays Atlanta, Denver, Atlanta again. So,
yeah,
Michael Thomas has been out for the most of the year, but I think he was going to come back and tremendous impact for your fantasy team.
Yeah, only played 55% of the offensive snaps last week, which I think we see a huge jump next week with the more favorable game script. And in 2 games versus the 49ers, he's averaging 11.5 targets on 8 catches for 104 yards and 1.5 touchdowns. So has definitely beat the 49ers before, and expect him. I think we see a Michael Thomas return game this week.
Yeah, I could see a 100-yard game for sure.
Yeah, totally. And again, high volume doing so. Especially like you said, Drew Brees with a potential shoulder injury that could be nagging. Expect to see even more short yardage throws than we might already see.
Next up, we got Terry McLaurin at Detroit, which is a decent matchup. Kyle Allen went down. He's on Alex Smith again, but I don't think Terry McLaurin. I don't think that
it doesn't matter.
Matters.
No, It doesn't really matter who's under center. I don't think. He's a lock. I mean, his target share has been so high. He's playing over 90% of the snaps every single week. 3 touchdowns on the year, but again, has now seen 7 catches 3 weeks in a row, double digits. Half of the games he plays, and hasn't seen less than 7 targets in a game. So he's a lock for a top play. Terry McLaurin has put together an incredible season.
Averaging just under 10 targets a game. and it could be going up. It's trending up.
Yeah.
So look out for Terry McLaurin. You're probably extremely happy with where you drafted him. Or if you didn't draft him, that's somebody I would look to trade for.
Yeah, I agree with you. Based on his ADP, I think you could, if somebody has Terry McLaurin, they probably have a decent receiver core. Next up, A.J. Brown coming in at number 9. Has now scored a touchdown 5 weeks in a row. Tough matchup tonight versus the Colts, but he's had at least 7 targets every single game he's played so far. And talent is going to keep him as a top-ranked player in this tough matchup.
I agree. He's been getting those touchdowns. He's a monster.
Yeah, gets good yard after catch.
He's the clear-cut number 1 receiver in Tennessee.
Yeah, and we're just hoping for better things from Ryan Tannehill. That will only mean better things for A.J. Brown as well. Next up, Will Fuller, another player who's been on an incredible streak, has scored a touchdown now 6 weeks in a row. And again, if Will Fuller is healthy, you got to start Will Fuller. He's so talented.
Yeah, Mr. Dependable.
Yeah, 5 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. And again, 6 weeks in a row, he's had a touchdown. And he's been getting good volume with that. Again, week 6 against Tennessee, he had 11 targets. Only had 5 last week. But again, it's a favorable matchup versus the Browns, and I expect them to be throwing the ball a decent amount.
Yeah, I think he's one of Deshaun Watson's favorite target, if not the favorite. And I expect him to get a big touchdown this week.
Yeah. Next up,
continue the streak.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's a favorable matchup. Next up, we got Robert Woods coming in at number 11. We had Jared Goff ranked high, so we got to have his pass catchers also ranked high. I expect a big Robert Woods game. He's got high touchdown. He's got 4 touchdowns on the year. Already surpassed his touchdown total last year. He's got 6 touchdowns on the year. He has 2 rushing touchdowns and 4 receiving touchdowns. So high touchdown upside. Is averaging a good amount of targets, and it's against Seattle, the worst defense against the pass.
Yeah, all of that. I agree. I expect good games from Woods and Kupp.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they're both starts this week. Safe. Very, very safe.
Next up, Tyler Lockett at the Rams. And again, Tyler Lockett, we talk about him every week. Super boomer bust. Has 2 games with 3 touchdowns. Has 5 games with 0 touchdowns. Last 2 games, he's had 4 catches and failed to go over 40 yards receiving. But again, upside volume. He had a red zone target last week. Is going to keep Tyler Lockett in the top 15 every single week. I mean, it's kind of interesting. He's going to have a big game, and he's going to go way up in the rankings, and then he's going to, miss a couple games, and he'll slide down, and then he'll bump up again. So it's just Tyler Lockett. He's boomer bust. You knew that when you drafted him, hopefully, and that's exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah, we're seeing boomer bust. I thought at the beginning of the year we saw consistency the first 2 weeks. And then he had a big game against Dallas, fell off for 2 weeks. Big game against Arizona, kind of fell off for 2 weeks. And you're hoping for,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you would definitely want Tyler Lockett in a game that the Seahawks score 34 points. You can't sit him, exactly. But you do want to see more than 6 half-point PPR points in a week where Seattle scores 34 points, But yeah, you cannot sit Tyler Lockett. So he's number 12. Next up, Cooper Kupp. We were talking about Robert Woods. Cooper Kupp falls in that discussion. Still getting good volume. Hasn't been as good as he was last year, but again, I think he's in for a good game this week against a super porous Seattle defense. I mean, week 8, Cooper Kupp had 20 targets on 11 catches for 110 yards. So coming off the bye, I do expect better things for Cooper Kupp. Expect a really big game from one of them, I think. And then both of them are gonna have good weeks, but I think one of them has a monster week.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then next up, we got Robbie Anderson versus Tampa Bay. Yeah, it's gonna be. I think they're gonna be behind and throwing the ball.
Yeah, Robbie Anderson, super consistent in terms of catches and yards, has a super safe floor, only has one touchdown on the year. We definitely would like to see that go up. But again, 13 targets last week. That is now the fourth time he's seen double-digit targets. Super safe floor with that target volume he's been getting. Next up, coming in after Robbie Anderson, we got Tyler Boyd. It's a tough matchup, but Tyler Boyd is another model of consistency in targets when it comes to the wide receiver position.
Yeah, absolutely. All these guys are very safe starts. Wide receivers pretty deep this year, and that's fortunate for most people who drafted well.
Yeah, tough year for running backs. Great year for wide receivers, though.
Absolutely. Next up, we got Chris Godwin, questionable. Looks like he'll play. He doesn't like sitting out, and I think he's just questionable because he doesn't really practice. We saw him tape his hand up last week and catch balls like that.
Yeah, which
it looks like he's just a player.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it was a horrible game for Tom Brady. None of the pass catchers did well. Chris Godwin still led the team in targets with 6. Played 94% of the offensive snaps, and I will say of note, he did have a pretty bad drop, but it looked like it was. I mean, it clearly was because of the taped up hand. So hopefully that gets better. And again, I think he's going to continue to be the favorite target of Tom Brady. And again, we see a bounce back game for Tom Brady and his pass catchers.
Absolutely. And then next we got Deontay Johnson. And it's versus Cincinnati. We got Mason Rudolph at quarterback this week. See how that affects these Steelers pass catchers. But Deontay Johnson, I think, is the safest one. He played well last year with Rudolph.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's had double-digit targets 4 out of the 7 games he has played. Now, granted, in the other games, they've been really bad. The other games that he's played, he's had, combined for less than 2 points in the 3 games. So, kind of boomer bust, but again, I do think with Mason Rudolph, the safest floor, it is tough. It's tough. We got all 3 of these pass catchers inside the top 30. It's going to be tough for them to all eat, and so many mouths to feed with Mason Rudolph, but I do feel good about Deontay Johnson being the highest ranked.
I do too. I think, at least what I've seen so far, I think the highest upside is Chase Claypool, but I think Deontay Johnson is the safest play.
Yeah, I mean, any one of them could have a big week. I mean, one of them's going to have, obviously, a good week, I think. It's just a question of who, but they're all high upside. But Deontay Johnson's definitely the safest floor out of them. So next up, we got DJ Chark coming in at number 18. We were low on him last week, but you know what? We always say it's new situations. It's always not always better, but it's in my mind it's better to be wrong on a week where I sit a guy than if I start a guy and he just puts up a dud.
Yeah, but I think he might not do as well as he did last week. He's got Jair Alexander.
I was just gonna say, actually, I have him high. I moved him up higher. I updated my rankings. Jair Alexander did not practice week Thursday, and his status is now highly in doubt. So, no Jair Alexander. I think we can expect big
huge.
things. Yeah, that's gonna be huge for DJ Chark. He had 12 targets, 7 catches, 146 yards, and a touchdown. Green Bay is a favorable matchup, a lot more favorable if Jair Alexander is out.
Yeah, agreed.
Brandon Cooks, another player who's put together some really nice games. It's a favorable matchup against Cleveland, and those two pass catchers for Houston have came along really nicely.
Yeah, Cook started off slow, and he's really come on nice the last couple weeks.
Yeah, had at least 9 targets now 4 weeks in a row, so that's really big for Cooks. Had three touchdowns in 4 of those weeks, so he's last 4 weeks. Um, Put together some really nice games. Had a really bad week against Minnesota, 3 targets, 0 catches. Since then, he's been on fire.
Yeah, and since then, yeah, like you said, he's averaged 10 targets a game.
Yep, and touchdown 3 out of 4 of those weeks. So that's gonna be big for Brandon Cooks. I think he can continue that. Those are two really great receivers to have for Deshaun Watson, and obviously a great quarterback to have for Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, two deep threat, big play guys. Next up, we got Adam Thielen. And that's probably the lowest we've had him in a long time. He goes up against Kyle Fuller and the Bears on Monday night. And it's a tough matchup.
Yeah, he's very touchdown dependent. Has now had 3 catches or less. 5 weeks now, which is, I mean, that's not what you want to see. Granted, 2 of those weeks he had a touchdown, but again, 5 out of 8 weeks, you've had 3 catches or less. His target share has been going down, has had 5, 4, and 5 targets the last 3 weeks. And they're really going a heavy Dalvin Cook gameplay. And again, Adam Thielen keeping his relevance was getting those touchdowns. He had
Yeah, he's
seven
only had
touchdowns through 6 weeks, has failed to score a touchdown 2 weeks in a row, and has just put up complete duds.
yeah, and he's only averaging 7 targets a game, and it's either he's getting double digits or it's looking like he's getting like 5, and you don't want to see 5 targets from your WR2.
Yeah.
Not this year when wide receivers are so deep. So it's he could absolutely get a touchdown and win and help you win, but be cautious on Adam Thielen.
Really tough matchup at Chicago on the road there on Monday night. So that's definitely the
Hopefully
lowest
he
he's been
sees more
ranked. Yeah,
targets.
I agree. Lowest he's been ranked all season. Next up, we got DJ Moore and another kind of boomer bust player.
He played great against Tampa Bay earlier in the season. Was one of the lone bright spots
Yeah,
in that
13
game.
targets for 8 catches and 120 yards. Week 2 versus Tampa.
Didn't get in the end zone, but I think he has a good game again.
Yeah. Has now had 2 catches 2 weeks in a row. Failed to find the end zone 2 weeks in a row, but I do think it's going to get a little bit better for DJ Moore this week.
Hoping he turns it around and turns it up.
Yeah, next up we got Juju versus Cincinnati. And again, we talked about the Pittsburgh pass catchers with no Ben Roethlisberger. It's tough to say what's going to happen and how this game is going to go. Juju Smith-Schuster has now seen at least 7 targets in the last 3 weeks in a row, so has played better. Got the touchdown last week versus Dallas, which broke his 4-game touchdown drought. So I do think we see better things out of Juju this week.
Yeah, hope so for Juju Smith-Schuster fantasy owners. And I'd look to play somebody else this week. Just from it's just hard. I don't like playing new quarterbacks. I don't like playing receivers with new quarterbacks. It's just something about it. I mean, I know they have rapport from last year. At least it's not brand new. But it's just something about it where it's like, if I can, I don't want to play the Steelers. I mean, I do because they're all great. That's the thing. It's just tough to say how this is going to go. Temper expectations.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Next up, Devontae Parker coming in at 23. And you know what? I feel good about this. I think Devontae Parker is in line for a big game. Right before the trade deadline, Chargers traded away their number one cornerback, Desmond King. Uh,
Yeah.
Last week, first week with Tua, he only had he had 2 targets, but he did get the touchdown, and that game was really weird against the Rams. They didn't really need to throw the ball at all. And then last week he had 7 targets, went 6 for 64, and I think it's gonna get better with Tua. It's again a very favorable matchup versus the Chargers.
Yeah, and Devontae Parker's good physical receiver. He gets open, and if he doesn't, he gets catches in tight spaces too. So good
Yeah.
player.
4 games versus the Charger, he's averaging 86 yards per game. So I think we can expect to see another, maybe not crazy high upside, but 6, 7 targets again. Maybe get some decent yardage, and yeah, has touchdown upside.
Next up, T. Higgins, and seems like he's trending up.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about T. Higgins way back in one of our preview shows as a waiver wire pickup, and he's becoming a pretty solid staple.
Yeah, absolutely. He's getting yards. He's getting touchdowns.
Yeah, he's had at least 60 yards now 5 weeks in a row, averaging 7 targets just about on the season, and it's in a high-powered offense.
Yeah, and it's just he gets a lot of yards per catch.
Yes,
high yards per catch.
absolutely. But again, that is a legit offense, and they're going to be throwing the ball a lot there in Cincy with Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I agree. Safe play. And next up, we got Brandon Ayuk at New Orleans, and when he plays, they love to get him the ball. It seems it looks like they're looking for ways to do it any way they can. And yeah, he's a fast little guy.
Yeah, he's really good. I really like the way that they use him. Obviously, Richie James had the big week last week into Nick Mullen with Brandon Ayuk out. Uh, he had a great game against Seattle week 8. I think another defense that you can score on. New Orleans, I know they obviously stifled Tom Brady, but I do think better things are coming for Brandon Ayuk. And he's put together some nice weeks. Weeks 6, 7, 8. He's had 2 touchdowns. Had at least 90 yards in 2 of those weeks. So his upside's going up, and again, using him really creatively.
Next up, Travis Fulgham, who slipped down the rankings for Will. I still have him pretty high. So he's aggregate 26. I'm high on him. I think Wentz likes him. I understand that he's getting back some weapons and that might decrease his efficiency, but I'm still gonna wait a week, and I'd feel safe playing him this week.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sounds safe for me.
I'm just worried about him this week. I'll totally say. I know he's been absolutely phenomenal. Scored a touchdown 4 out of the last 5 weeks. Had double-digit targets in 3 of those. But again, that's totally been without all the weapons. Jalen Rieger's on the field. Dallas Goedert's on the field. Alshon Jeffrey's on the field. Miles Sanders is on the field. I'm going to wait a week on these Eagles pass catchers. I do think things may trend towards tight ends, Jalen Rieger and Alshon Jeffrey. I think it might trend away from Travis Fulgham. I could be wrong. Giants do have a good defense. And again, I'm just worried with all these weapons coming back. I want to wait a week, especially, we're going to get Goddard. We have Goddard back. We're going to get Ertz back soon. There's a lot of mouths to feed on that Philly offense, especially with the way Carson Wentz has been performing. A lot of turnovers, and his fantasy production has been relying on rushing touchdowns. So I'm just kind of waiting a week and hoping to get some clarity on this Eagles receiving core.
And yeah, it's reasonable, but he averages 9 targets a game, so I'm not quick to give up on him. I don't know if that decreases.
I'm not giving up on him. I'm not giving up on him. I'm just gonna sit him this week and wait. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, let's respect that.
Yeah, I mean, Carson Wentz does like throwing his way. Alshon Jeffries does like throwing touchdown his way.
That's true. We haven't seen Alshon Jeffrey yet this year, and I think maybe he replaces Fulgham.
Yeah,
Where I see Wentz doing with Fulgham.
and I think I'm not going to be surprised if this week Dallas Goedert ends up with the highest amount of targets.
Well, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Jalen Rieger, they're making a point to get him the ball against Dallas week 8. He got a touchdown. So, again, a lot of mouths to feed. I do think the safest bets in this offense going forward are going to be Miles Sanders and Dallas Goedert. So, again, I'm holding on to Fulgham, but I'm personally benching him this week for sake of clarity. I could be wrong, but we will see what happens.
Next up, Justin Jefferson at Chicago. Tough matchup, but this is another boomer bust player.
Yeah, and again, he can go off at any time. I think it can help that Adam Thielen's going to draw that Kyle Fuller coverage, but again, 2 weeks in a row,
he's been playing pretty good though.
Yeah, he has been.
Johnson.
Yeah. And again, week 6 against Atlanta pre-bye, Justin Jefferson had the monster game, 9 catches for 160 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then the last 2 weeks has only had 6 catches combined. I will say, I think that's game script. We played 2 of the worst rushing defenses, and Dalvin Cook just feasted. We had no need to throw the ball. Kirk Cousins the last 2 weeks has combined for 34 pass attempts. And I think he gets closer to 30 passing attempts, which does bode well for Justin Jefferson.
He's again huge upside, but I think he also has a very low floor. So boomer bust for me.
Yeah, and it's totally for me. It's all on Kirk Cousins. What do we see? What Kirk Cousins do we get Monday night? How effective is Dalvin Cook going to be against Chicago? A lot of questions there. So Justin Jefferson, 27. Next up, Chase Claypool. And we've talked about these Pittsburgh receivers. Honestly, I would be fine with switching any of them out. I do feel good about having all of them ranked top 30. I agree with you. I think Chase Claypool has the highest upside, but also going along with that, I think he has the lowest floor. So we'll see. We will see. He's had, obviously after the 4 touchdown games, he's had touchdowns 2 out of the 4 weeks. Had the one game against Tennessee where he had 1 catch for -2 yards. But last week, 13 targets on 8 receptions. And another favorable matchup this week against Cincy.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just boom or bust. He's actually at double digits. 5 out of 8. So percentage wise, really good. But on his games where he's not there, it's bad.
Yeah, and I think with Mason Rudolph, his chances of missing are just a little higher.
Yeah, so upside play, take a chance on him, but boom or bust.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Sterling Shepard.
He's pretty solid for.
Yeah.
I can't think of. I thought Darius Slayton was the guy, but once Sterling Shepard came back, I think Slayton's the big play guy, but Shepard's just a PPR guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Since returning from injury, has had 6 catches and at least 8 targets in every single game. And again, I think he's becoming that possession guy you want in PPR.
Yep, if you need a safe 4 play, that's it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Next up, we got Nelson Agholor at number 30. I'm a little bit higher on Nelson Agholor than you are. Obviously, he's big play dependent, but I do think that could favor against Denver.
Yeah, no doubt. He's big play dependent, but he is. They run big plays for him.
Yeah.
They call his number.
Yeah, I mean, he's had 5 touchdowns on the year, touchdowns in 4 out of the last 5 games. And the one game that he didn't get a touchdown, I mean, for those of you caught week 8 Las Vegas Rams at Cleveland, the weather was just terrible. We were seeing 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts. It was a mix of rain and snow. It was cold. I mean, we saw that, and we just knew it was not conducive to a good game for the deep ball. Now, against Denver, it's going to be much more favorable, and I think we see another big game out of Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah, he's a big play guy. He doesn't get that many targets, only 25 targets in 8 games, so that's like 4 targets a game. But very big play guy, very fast guy, can get touchdowns.
Yeah, absolutely. And so going 30 through 40, I'm honestly going to say all of these guys have pretty high upside for me. I think Curtis Samuel with Christian McCaffrey being out is in line for a big game. I know he's ranked below DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson still, but he is emerging as that number 2 right now.
Yeah, definitely somebody they're using in a variety of ways and looking to get him touches. Same with Christian Kirk. It's the same situation. It's just they want to get the ball in his hands and they're figuring out ways to do it.
Yeah,
he's so fast.
He's got 4 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. 2 of those coming by way of the ground. Last week had 9 targets for 9 catches and 105 yards. And it's a tough matchup versus Tampa Bay, but again, there's a lot of weapons on that Carolina offense.
Surely. And somebody I want to touch on in this is Mike Evans. This is probably the lowest we've had him at 35.
It's not looking good.
Yeah.
That's probably right about where he finished last week. Hasn't seen more than 5 catches in a game since week 4.
He has been kryptonited by Marshawn Lattimore, so that might have something to do with that last week. But against Carolina, he has another tough Dante Jackson, so that's another tough matchup.
Yeah, and it's just with so many targets, again, it's just so hard to say. I think Chris Godwin, for me, is the only safe bet in that passing offense, like a safe bet for, I can confidently say he's going to get 6 to 8 targets a game.
Yeah, I agree. I think Evans has turned more into just a red zone target.
Yeah, if they threw the ball to him multiple times in the red zone, but again, Marshawn Lattimore shut him down, but they're not really throwing him the ball outside of that a whole lot. So very touchdown dependent with all these guys on the field.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect many big plays. Maybe catch something in the red zone, but
exactly. That's what you're hoping for at this point, Mike Evans, that he gets into the end zone. We talked a couple weeks ago about trading Mike Evans. Hopefully you guys were able to do that. But Mike Evans, what a fall from grace. I want to talk about Tim Patrick at number 40. He saw 9 targets last week. It's a favorable matchup versus the Rams. We'll say the same with Jerry Jeudy. Both of those guys have really high upside.
Yeah, they do. And they both had Jerry Jeudy had a great game. And who was the other? You said Kirk?
I was saying Tim Patrick. Both.
Tim Patrick.
He had 9 targets last week. Got a touchdown. And also, I will say, in a super deep league, if you just need a guy, KJ Hamler is someone to look at. Favorable matchup. He had 10 targets last week, 6 catches for 75 yards. Week before that, he had a touchdown. So Denver's looking like it's a favorable passing offense that where it can support multiple fantasy relevant players. Not super high, but
I think they're really just trying to figure it out. I don't know if they expect anything for this year, but like going forward, they're trying to be the Chiefs. So they want weapons. They know Locke's not as good as Mahomes, but it looks like they want a high-powered offense.
Yeah, I agree with you. Also, Christian Kirk, John Brown, both have really high upside. We could see both of them going for a big play in that game. But again, receivers are super deep. I'd feel pretty good about starting almost all of these guys in the top 40. If I'm in a 12, 14 team league, I'm not. I think they all have pretty good upside.
Yeah, I agree. They're ranked. We're Yeah, receivers so deep. We've mentioned that already. I like a lot of these receivers. I'd like them better at my flex than any of the running backs.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, let's get to the tight end rankings. Obviously, with the injury to George Kittle and Travis Kelsey on a bye, the clear-cut number one tight end is Darren Waller. I mean, he's been a.
I think it's unanimous.
Mhm.
And yeah, he's been a guy that they really focus on in Las Vegas as part of their offense. High target share for a tight end. I think one of the highest, if not the highest in the league.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Next up, number two, we got Noah Fant. And for him, it's just about staying healthy. He's a really talented tight end. Was playing a great game, had 3 catches for 45 yards until he got hurt against Atlanta. The week before, 9 targets for 7 catches. Getting a good target share, and
Yeah,
I think he has high upside if he can stay healthy throughout this game.
yeah, definitely. He's got very high upside. 32 catches, 349 yards. So he has really high yard per catch.
Yeah. He's
Big
very
plays out
athletic.
of the tight end, and yeah, solid targets. For as much as he's been on the field, it's been really good.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Next up, TJ Hawkinson is questionable with a toe injury. We'll monitor that going forward, but he's been a total model of consistency this year. He's had 5 touchdowns, seeing a nice target share, averaging 8 targets over his last 3 games. And I mean, that's what you need out of your tight end, consistency.
Yeah, and he benefits when Kenny Galladay is out, which looks like it is going to occur again this week.
Yep. Next up, Rob Gronkowski, and we talked about the pass catchers there. It looked like Gronk was becoming his second favorite target there, and obviously then the dud happened. I think we got to look past what happened last week, and I think we can expect a big Gronk week, a bounce back.
Yeah, I think so too. As long as I don't that's who Tom Brady's looking for right now. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
They signed him for a year. It's looking like Tampa Bay with Gronkowski. I guess he's not gonna just be a blocker, you know.
Yeah, I agree with you. Next up, Mark Andrews, and I'm gonna be honest. He might slip a couple spots after this week if he doesn't produce. Super boomer bust at the tight end position, but it's not seen a high target share like we'd like to.
Yeah, I'm hoping that changes, but New England's been very good against the tight end, so they shut down Waller completely.
Yeah,
So
he's had 5 touchdowns on the year, but that's only been in 3 games.
And only 26 catches.
Yeah,
So doesn't have the 30 catches that you want out of your top tight ends.
I mean exactly 6 out of his 8 games played, he's had 3 catches or less, and 5 out of the 8 games played, he has not scored a touchdown. So super boomer bust is really his only productive. I mean, he's had 3 productive weeks where he scored a touchdown. So he's touchdown dependent. And I'm going to say these next 2 guys that are ranked below her, I think, are a safer lock for a higher target share and catches.
Yeah, I like Goddard this week. That's who I'm playing at New York Giants, and I'll even like him when Ertz comes back. I think he's really good, and he's one of Carson Wentz's favorite targets.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was leading the team in targets through the first 2 weeks there, which is huge because that was when Zach Ertz was on the field. And I think this is the first week we see him back fully healthy. Obviously, he played week 8, but wasn't involved too much. And I think we see a big Dallas Goedert game.
Yeah, I'm hoping for it. I got him starting.
Yeah, next up, Austin Hooper. He missed the last. He's out with the appendicitis, but it looks like he's returned. Not an injury that we're too worried about. But prior to that injury, weeks 4, 5, and 6, he saw 7, 10, and 6 targets, and he had 5 catches in each of those games. So his target share, his snap count, everything was increasing before the appendicitis.
Yeah, and Kevin Stefanski loves his tight ends, so
Yeah, I agree. And maybe it just took. I think part of that we were seeing it just took a couple weeks to gel. They had no preseason together, and they didn't gel too well the first 3 weeks. But then we started to see that connection, and I think that was really all it was. It was they didn't get a preseason, they didn't get to play really much at all with COVID and the protocols and practicing and such. So
yeah, looks like he'll be a decent play going forward. Next up, Hunter Henry at Miami, and I mean these bottom 8 guys are all just guys that are pretty safe. I don't know if one even stands out more than the others.
yeah, it's tough.
To me.
It's tough. Hunter Henry is only ranked that high. I mean, Hunter Henry averages like 6 targets a game. He's on the field over 90% of the snaps almost every game, and that's why he's ranked so high, but he's only has like 1 touchdown. I mean, Justin Herbert just likes throwing the ball down the sideline and deep balls, and that's not conducive to Hunter Henry.
And the thing about tight end is it's very, everybody's pretty close.
Once you get past a certain point, yeah, it's just you're really hoping for a touchdown. Hunter Henry did have 2 red zone targets last week on 2 different drives, so it easily could have changed his game around last week. Very interesting, though. 2 weeks in a row, he's now had 4 catches for 33 yards exactly. Jonnu Smith, number 9, he's kind of fallen off with A.J. Brown and Corey Davis. The emergence, he is now touchdown dependent. Not really he's seeing targets with about as much as Fursker. So Jonnu Smith, but again, that touchdown upside is going to keep him probably in the top 10.
Yeah, and that's pretty much with all these guys is very touchdown dependent. I'm gonna say I like Ingram more for targets. I like Graham more for targets.
I was gonna say Jimmy Graham put together a nice week. He's now had at least 6 targets. 4 weeks in a row, had 6 catches for 55 yards and a touchdown last week, and it's a favorable matchup against Minnesota. I do think Jimmy Graham could outperform the number 12 ranking at tight end.
Yeah, absolutely. I will agree with that.
Eric Ebron also, we very well could see Mason Rudolph looking his way a lot. He's been playing better football lately. They've been looking his way in the red zone. But again, so you could also, like you said, Evan Ingram could definitely outperform that. He's averaged almost 10 targets a game over his last 3 weeks. So
Ebron's another guy for me. He's very touchdown dependent. Always has been.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. It is a favorable matchup, though.
Favorable matchup. I think out of the bottom, the guys in the double digits, Jimmy Graham's the best play.
Yeah, I'd say Jimmy Graham and Evan Ingram for sure.
Yep.
But yeah, Ebron's had a touchdown 2 weeks in a row. Not sure if we'll see that a third week, but his snap count has been increasing, so keep an eye on that. All right, well, that is it for the tight end ranks. We're going to open up our kicker defense ranks just so you guys can take a look at that. Ravens number 1 defense against New England. They've been terrible. No big surprises here. We're pretty high on the Bears defense this week. Kirk Cousins is 0 for 9 on Monday night. 0 for 4 against the Bears. Hoping that turns around, but not expecting a whole lot of points even if we do win.
Yeah. I agree. I don't got much to say. Just soak it all in. I think going forward, Miami Dolphins could move up the rankings in the next couple weeks, but
yeah,
and I think they have potential to outperform at 9.
I mean, they've played great. They obviously, they're turning the ball over.
Turnovers.
They're getting touchdowns. They've had a touchdown 2 weeks in a row. But yeah, they're getting turnovers most importantly, and yeah, they have a really favorable stretch coming up forward. They could definitely expect some more turnovers against the Chargers, and then they play Denver, Jets, and Cincinnati. So very favorable matchups going forward. Very talented defense. Look for them to sacks, turnovers, and they're always. I'm never going to predict a defensive touchdown, but they're a team that has a high likelihood week in, week out to get a defensive touchdown.
Yeah, as far as defensive goes, I think they have the most. Nope, everyone has one, but they have a special teams touchdown too. So do the Chiefs.
No, Dolphins had a touchdown 2 weeks in a row.
Oh no, yep, they have two.
They had the strip sack against Goff, and then
Colts have the most defensive touchdowns. I was looking at return touchdowns.
yeah. So, but obviously, we got Colts at number 8. Hoping to see better things out the Tennessee offense, but Ryan Tannehill with the injuries of Taylor Lewan that has really hurt his performance.
They don't really turn the ball over too. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be too worried about it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
As you'll see.
Well,
Colts can score the ball.
Yeah, is there anything else you'd like to go over?
No, thanks for tuning in. Keep you posted. Check out the Sunday show to have a better idea of the actual rankings, because a lot is going to change, I have a feeling.
Yeah, I think a lot of these players that we have ranked, I've got a feeling Joe Mixon won't play this week. I'll say that. We'll see what happens with a lot of these other players too. So just keep an eye on that. Like you said, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell so that you do get notified when we go live. We're doing that at least once, usually twice a week. Got lots of videos coming for you. And like we say, hit us on Twitter, hit us in Instagram DMs, hit the comments on YouTube if you have any questions, if you'd like some secondary input on what to do with trades. Trade deadline is rapidly approaching in fantasy football leagues. I know in many leagues it is next week, week 11. So it's a very important week to trades. We're getting to that stretch run of fantasy football. So make sure you tune in for some good content and some good advice to help you get some wins down the stretch.
Yeah, thanks everybody, and peace.